I didn't plan on using empowerment in this today. I kept saying lack to abundance, but I realized when we started that that's really it. We have to be empowered to make significant change in our lives.
Hi, I am Judy Marie, owner of Miracles of Health. Thank you for watching today. And would you please hit the like button and subscribe so we could get lots of this information out to as many people as possible. So today with me again, which we just love doing videos together, is Dr. Lorri. Thank you, Dr. Lorri, for joining together. And we're going to talk about lack to abundance, how to bridge the gap. Okay.
We are.
Yes, we are. We're doing that. And what a great time, Dr. Lorri, that we can share this with when a lot of people are feeling so challenged right now, and they could feel the effects of what's happening economically, or so many different changes that are taking place quickly, daily, on the planet right now. So talking about this with you, I find this to be pretty exciting because there isn't anything we can't change and shift from however it was. And I only know a wee little bit about how it was for you. I know we're both going to share a little bit of that with the purpose that how to inspire and how we can help another. Our stories we share are to be very helpful, because now that we are not victims to our past, victims to our upbringing, then we can bring about some of the enlightenment that has come from it. And you have really quantum leaped quite a bit, yet without some pretty important challenges too.
Amen. Amen. What a journey this has been. And thankfully, starting, I guess, the new chapter when I moved from being a victim to being empowered, which was most likely sometime in the 1990s, late 1990s. So we'll just call it 25 years ago. I realized that there was a reason, obviously, I felt like a victim. There are many reasons, and I'll fill in some of those gaps now. What I also realize now, and that's why I brought it up when I started to bridge that gap from victim to being acknowledged, from victim to actually being empowered, I began to realize that my past, my upbringing, the choices maybe I made even before I entered this earth, that, in heaven, I said, okay, I'm up for this. I'm going to go to earth and we'll see how this flows. I realized that all of that was on purpose. And I have really been thinking through this more lately as I have begun writing a book. And that book will really be about my life. And what I like about the book is it's somewhat autobiography, but also self-help. And so this is very apropos, us having this today. It's a very, very good topic because it's so on the forefront of my mind. And I continue to find ways to be grateful for the times that were quite dark indeed. And I know that you have stories, Judy. I have stories. There are many, many other people that have stories. And as we're talking today about going from lack to abundance and how to bridge that gap, I truly believe that that bridge is what I've already said. And that's realizing that the first part was on purpose, was inspired. And then when you get to the point where you actually feel freedom from that, there are amazing, amazing things that will happen not only in our personal lives, us in particular, and those around us, but that will reach out to the world to make it a better place.
I really like that, Dr. Lorri, because the potential of our past traumas are are these amazing gifts,
So,
for anybody who wants to embrace them, whether it brought about a lot of health issues, whether it brought about, and here we're talking about lack to abundance, lack of all that we didn't have, or the financial struggles.
yes.
As a child, I don't know if you really recognize it all. Maybe, I went through a phase. Um, I should say, I'm going to address this more or less, when I was on food stamps, when my children were babies, when I was in government housing, wasn't sure, what car I was going to drive, how I was getting around, that type of thing. But yet I kept imagining, even as a child, and I think you had talked about this too, imagine how it could be.
Mm.
What more of what you want than where that was.
Yeah. Yes, I always had that wonder. I always believed that there was something more. And of course, initially, the more would be more money. Because if there was more money, I wouldn't be living, my family wouldn't be living in a certain place. And, if there was more money, the car would be available. If there was more money, then it would be easier for me to go to school. There's multiple things there. And then I realized that more is not just money. And that's where I am today. And thankfully, just through lots of hard work and dedication and perseverance, there is money available. The more as I continue to grow and become more of who I am today, is a reality of knowing how much spirit is involved in this journey. And that when I tap into that spirit and believe that I'm here for a purpose, then everything just becomes more. I remember years ago, my brother and I would sign off on cards. I wish you enough. I wish you enough.
Mm.
And, that was at a time when we were both making the bridge. We're both trying to create that bridge to go from lack to abundance. And because of a childhood truly of lack, which I will start getting into soon,
Mhm.
that wish was so potent. Whatever it takes, whatever we need to do, I wish you enough. And I have since done that, written that, sorry, on different cards to other people or people that I know who are struggling with lack, students that have come through my business that are moving forward, new couples that are getting married. I wish you enough. And we have to dig sometimes to figure out what that enough is.
Or even more than enough.
More than enough.
Okay, of thinking I should be satisfied with average, whether that's your health. And abundance isn't, abundance is mind, body, spirit. It to me, it encompasses everything. And I don't separate well-being from that and our health from that. I grew up very unhealthy, sickly many times, um, and to be able to equate that to, with what we're talking about, with an abundant life of health and well-being is really, it's not for the lazy. It is not for the lazy.
No,
You,
it is not.
you've got to want it to be different. And here's where we talk about that insanity. We want things better and better and better, but we are not changing the mindset. We are not changing our habits or our beliefs. or exercising that imagination that it can be. Like how did you know that as a child that you will get out of this bubble, you will break through what it is? Because
So
you have real, you can really, really identify with this with, I'm sure, a lot of people and a lot of people you've coached and helped.
yeah, yeah. So just a quick background, in my very, very early years, I will say before, from when I was born until maybe 6, 7 years old, we as a family group, so my parents and my three older siblings and I, seemed to, at that point in life, have it all. My father was a truck driver at that point, back in the 60s and 70s, late 60s and early 70s. He was making a good living, and I remember other family members saying, "Oh, your family, the Lankowitzes, have money," and I don't know if we did or not. We lived in a row house in Pittsburgh. I remember our family unit being very strong. All of us, all the kids were intelligent. We did well in school. We were all great at sports. It seemed that we always had food on the table and gifts coming and so on and so forth. And then, what happened, my dad had already had a problem with alcohol and he ended up losing that truck driving job. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he was fired due to alcoholism. I was very young at the time. And all of a sudden, that money kind of stopped coming in. And, the abuse, my father physically abused my mom, and I've shared that on other podcasts. And, so here I am now at 7 and 8 years old. And one particular day when my mom presented divorce papers to my father, I was the only one home with her, and he came home from the bar and was just irate and literally tried to kill her. So, had I not been there to pull him off, to literally grab his wrists and pull him away from her neck, she would have perished. And, at 8 years old, I found that strength, willpower, obviously a burst of adrenaline to pull my 200+ pound father off of her. And she survived. At that point, that was it. That was the last time my father lived with us. The divorce went through. My mom had been working a job just at a little candy shop or a food shop where my grandmother worked in downtown Pittsburgh. So in came the food stamps and help from family members, thankfully. If my grandmother hadn't been around, my grandfather ended up dying not long after that. The struggle would have been even more real. And so all of a sudden, this core group that seemed to have it all started to break apart in different ways. So my father's now gone. My grandfather passes. And then a few years later, so, again, I was 8 when that happened with my parents. My grandfather died 4 days before my 10th birthday. He was buried on my 10th birthday. And then when I was 11, my sister Darlene was 15. She was hit by a car and eventually died. And so it just was horrendous. So you talk about lack monetarily, where we were living, the family falling apart, really, really desperate times in so many ways. And so back to your question from a few minutes ago, when or how did I know that was going to change? There was one very significant instance where I forgot to get my bus pass. So I got a free bus pass. I'm now in high school and I forgot to get the bus pass. So I used public transportation and I needed $1. I needed $1 for the bus to get to school. And this was going to be Monday morning. We literally could not find $1 in our house. My mother was there, my oldest brother was there, and I don't know why, but there was not $1 in my house. And so I could have made the choice to not go to school. And this is so engraved in my mind that I know at that point it was the juice, if you will, the adrenaline that came into me that said, okay, this is going to be up to you. And so I'm up in my mom's bedroom. I'm just looking out the window. There was Two of my neighbors were outside. The one guy's a couple years older than me. I knew that he would have a dollar, so I asked him for it. He said, "Of course, here's your dollar." So I made the choice to go to school. That was number one. When I was up in that window, I prayed and I talked to God and I said, "Okay, here's the deal. You show me whatever path possible so that as I continue to grow and learn and earn degrees, whatever it is I need to do, that of course I will always have $1 and that I will make sure that my life and those around me will not ever have to feel this immense lack and to have to make a choice as to what path to take. And even at that point, I do not have children. I said, I promise I will never bring a child into this world unless I can afford to have that child. That's what I felt at that moment, only because, at that moment, my mom was not providing what was needed for me for whatever reason. And so again, I was in high school. I can't tell you, I was probably a sophomore or a junior. And, I really started to dig deep then. And I thought, where am I going from here? And we ended up being evicted from that row house, which really did not cost a lot of money per month, a year or two later. So my senior year, we moved into a different row house down in a different area, and it was crap. That row house was crap. There were bugs and mice and my goodness, I remember one night I couldn't get the door to latch, the front door. So now where's my safety net? I was the only one home. And, it was just horrifying. When I look back now, that was horrifying. And the juice kept coming, the adrenaline kept coming to say, you keep on this path. And, I'll kind of wrap with this and we can keep talking back and forth. But I remember, so I played softball and I was on the field, and this was in Bloomfield. It's called Dean's Field. And there was one day we weren't playing. I was with a friend of mine. And I literally had all of my college papers spread out on the field in front of me with my friend, choosing where I should go to school, where I should go to college, and what route should I take. I didn't know. And my mom, God bless her, she is now on the other side. And I am so grateful for my mother and everything that she taught me in multiple different ways, right? But she said, I can't help you. I don't know how to help you. She did not go to school. She had no clue where to start. And, so it was almost a eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but, I decided, okay, this is where I'm going to school. Now, what do I do? And it happened that summer before. So then junior year, I was carrying laundry down the stairs and I misstepped and I sprained my ankle. And so I went to the hospital. It was not broken, but I needed to be on crutches. So they sent me to physical therapy to learn how to walk on crutches. And so I did that and I looked around and I thought, this is what I'm supposed to do. And there we go. So I started that journey. It started out in athletic training. I decided to go athletic training first. And so I graduated with my bachelor's degree in athletic training, worked at Duquesne University as the first female athletic trainer for all women's sports and assisted on some men's sports. And then while I was there, Duquesne started their physical therapy program, master physical therapy program. So I entered that in its second year. I was in the second class and graduated with that master's degree 2 years later. So boom, there I was after I learned how to walk on crutches. I don't know how many years later that was, probably 8, maybe. I became a physical therapist and the money part came in, right? PTs make a nice salary, but it still was not enough. There was still much more to learn and to grow into. But at that point, well, let me say, it was enough at that point. It wasn't more than enough, as you so eloquently said earlier. So I think, this was a long answer, but I think it was needed to kind of give the background on how you can make that step from lack to abundance, and really from lack to being empowered. And that is that you have to keep making choices and you have to pray about those and you have to say, look, I know I'm here for a reason. So just show me the steps, show me the way. And then, as you said, you have to be willing to take the steps. Once you hear it, and those doors open, you have to take it. You have to walk through the door.
I'm glad you shared that story. I had no idea how you got into physical therapy,
Yeah.
or as a physical therapist. And what I'm hearing with you, Dr. Lorri, you have been tuned into the spirit. Okay, when you talk about the juice, which I think is really a cool term, it really is allowing the spirit, the divine intelligence to come through. We have these promptings. We have thousands of promptings a day, that, or you can call them, as Florence Shinn uses the word hunch, simultaneously with intuition. I mean, we have these hunches, and it reminded me, when you were talking about that with some of your experiences, there in the past. I was hanging clothes on the clothesline one day, and we're both from Pennsylvania area. And my mom was hanging the clothes. I was holding the basket of wet clothes. And she said to me, I want you to remember one thing. If there's a will, there's a way.
Mm.
And I believe I was around 8 or 9. And
Mm.
I never forgot that. And that saying inspired me to write my first book. She thought she could, she did. And it's really based on getting my voice. If there's a will, there's a way. And I mean divine will. Okay. I'm not talking about the ego will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the greater plan of health, wealth, prosperity, an abundant life, lots of healing. It's so, with what you're saying, that will, that drive, that to me, that is infinite intelligence, divine, God, essence, that strength that we're connected with and that we have, that is unstoppable, even in the darkest moments. But that doesn't open up in us. And I was thinking of this visualization, Dr. Lorri. We have two hands, right? There's two fists right here. When I have experiences in life, I can clench this fist. I could resist looking at the truth, resist, what is my part, or my fear might be there, or my lack might be there, whatever. Or I can open up this hand to my palm opening up to the light, to the truth, to the divine, to Christ consciousness, to God, versus, we're gonna fight this way through this, which only gives you more of what you don't want, versus opening up to all possibilities, that things could change and things could be different for us than what it was then. There's no judgment. Like, I don't hear you talking about, how bad this was, or how bad the mom was, or how bad it was, what it was, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, just on my mom, she went through a lot. I mean, this woman, had her first child very young, ended up marrying a guy she thought was going to be great. He had his issues, and, it ended up imploding. And I mean, can you imagine? I mean, just for a moment, imagine that someone has pushed you onto the floor and has their hands around your neck, and your 8-year-old daughter is standing there and just helpless. She was helpless at that moment. I mean, there was no way. He was too large. She tried fighting, and then to get back up after that and move forward, and then end up losing her daughter a couple years later. And eventually my eldest brother died. So ended up losing her son multiple years later. So, and, many other things in between. And, my mom had a tenacity to keep going. She didn't share a lot, but I believe that when she was in high school, from minimal stories from her, some from family, mostly from her friends, she was talented and strong and uh, you know, was great in school. She had a lot of good things going for her. And truly, when she met my father, her life changed drastically. All her dreams changed drastically. And, was it difficult between my mom and I for many years and many choices? Absolutely. Our roles kind of switched when I saved her life. I became her savior. And, to the day she died, truly, it was more of me taking care of my mom than my mom taking care of me. Now, we were still great, great friends. We were a great mother-daughter team. And, she ended up moving into my home and for her last couple of years and died in my home. And, so I just want to bring that up because I'm sure there are people out there that had experiences with one of their parents, their mom, their dad, who maybe both. And, if you stay in the victimhood of, excuse me, look what happened to me, look what my parents did or did not do for me or did not do to me, then we're not moving from lack to abundance. And, so those were just choices after choices after choices that I needed to make. And I remember at one point building a home in Mars, PA, which is close to here, and it was a beautiful home. And my mom, it was my first Thanksgiving in the home. Family were coming over, and my mom came Wednesday night, and we were prepping for Thanksgiving. And then we sat down on the couch and we were watching some music show. And I looked at her and I said, "Mom, did you ever think we'd be sitting in a home like this?" And she said, "No, absolutely not, Lorri." And, so that moment, being able to, so let's really talk about that. Moving from
Yeah.
being the victim,
Yes.
right, of,
Mm-hmm.
maybe parental despair
Mm-hmm.
to being able to give a gift back to my mom, which
Mm-hmm.
always elicits tears in me. um, Priceless, absolutely priceless. And that went on. Those gifts continued. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, to the point where she moved into the home that I still live in today. And, so when you're looking at building that bridge, if you stay on the side of I'm really angry at what my childhood produced, I'm angry at my parents, I'm angry at whoever crossed any boundary in my life, then we cannot build that bridge
Mm-hmm.
to abundance. We cannot build the bridge to empowerment. And I didn't plan on using empowerment in this today. I kept saying lack to abundance, but I realized when we started that that's really it. We have to be empowered to make significant change in our lives.
Mm-hmm. I, gosh, I honor you for sharing this. And what I hear, which is all weaved into the abundance and the empowerment, is love, forgiveness. You let go. You let
Amen.
go. Drop, drop the rope. Okay. If we want things to progress in a better way for ourselves, it is to recognize we still have choices and we still can change, wherever we're at and whatever it is that we want to do, and to
Yes.
manifest a better life that is for ourselves. But you have been able to imagine that and transcend that through the love that is in your heart. And that's what it takes. And people might think, if, we don't, there's this myth about prosperity and abundance that people think is selfish.
Mm.
Okay. So self-serving. I didn't hear any of that in what you just said. It is about caring. It is about grace. It is about having the faith and the belief in something powerful, much bigger than we are. And that is what moves every cell in my soul, every cell in my being. And watching this throughout the years with you, it's almost like, okay, what can we create and do next? What do we want to shift? What do I want to do different? I mean, this isn't just an ongoing
Mm.
situation, but we have our imagination. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is spirit flowing through. People who are not using their imagination to create actually decline pretty
Absolutely.
rapidly. They don't age well.
Correct. Yeah, it's so true. One thing that you said, if I go back to that day when I asked my neighbor for $1 and said to God, show me the way, I also in that time said, I promise that when I have that dollar, I'll give it to anybody in need. And, so that is very much a part of this abundance for me, is to always remember and always give back. And I have done that over and over again, and I will continue to do that. And that's monetarily, that's also giving of my gifts and multiple other things.
Mhm.
And if we go back to I wish you enough, to then to the point of I wish you more than enough, and all of us needing to take a moment to believe that we are worthy of more than enough. And again, to do it in spirit and not in ego, so that we're not just collecting the buckets, right? Well, I got this bucket of money, this bucket of money, it's just sitting here.
Mhm.
That's not what this is
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
And, so again, I became that physical therapist, excuse me, and worked as a physical therapist.
Mhm.
And I realized as I was working, and I was happy with it. I was touching people's lives, but I truly, truly thought there was more. I knew there was more for me, and so I took a hiatus from working in the outpatient world. So right away, when I graduated, I went to work outpatient in a clinic in Ohio, and then another place in Ohio, I worked outpatient, and I helped them create an outpatient place, and I helped and became a manager in the home care, and things just kept, churning, and I, all of my talents were being used. There's no doubt about that. And then I moved back home. A couple things led me to the belief that I needed to come back home and do some more healing, to get back in touch with my family and work through some of the stuff that we've discussed. That doesn't just go away
Yeah.
because I was accomplishing. I knew I needed deeper work.
Mhm.
And so I came back and I again did some home care. I started doing some consulting, but I wasn't in that, we'll call it the 9 to 5. I wasn't just pressured to, I have to be here and there. And so that changed my income dramatically, but I knew I needed it. And at one point, I I just was sitting in the place that I was living at that time in the living room, and I have this hand drum, this really cool hand drum, and I'm talking to God, and I'm saying, okay, we've gone through a lot.
Mhm.
And I get it. I get it. I take it all. I know this is for purpose. I know there's more purpose. So at this point, and I'm banging on this drum, and I said, at this point, I need you to show me what that is. You show me the next part of this path, or get me out of here. Get me out of here, because this has not been fun. There's been a lot of pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I need more insight. And, up to that point, again, being born and raised Catholic, you don't yell at God, you don't demand from God, all those things. But at this point, I was demanding, and I said, you need to show me the way. And and if not, get me out of here. And again, I believe I said that on another podcast. What I want to stress here is I was not going to take my own life. I was not suicidal, but I was at a point that if there wasn't whatever that next level was, more than enough was, then
Mhm.
I didn't see a need to be here. So I was asking to gently remove me.
Mhm.
And not long after that, I had started putting out some resumes, and they all led me from Pittsburgh to Butler. Everything was showing up in Butler, every opportunity. And, if you know Pittsburgh to Butler, Route 8, I'm driving up and down Route 8, and I'm saying, okay, I know I asked for this, but I'm not moving to farm town. Butler is farm town. That's what I thought from the big city of Pittsburgh. And, of course, best laid plans, God and spirit very much were chuckling. And I surrendered. And I surrendered. And that was 20 years ago, and 20 plus years ago, actually, 22 years ago, 23 years ago. And what has been created since then is where I am today, owning a physical therapy business that started in, I think I had 1,800 square feet, and now I'm in my fourth clinic at 10,000 square feet. It houses both the physical therapy business and Dr. Lorri Health.
Mhm.
And, again, thousands and thousands of people have come through all of those doors and have, been helped in mind, body, and spirit through physical therapy, through consultations, so on and so forth. And of course, my abundance has grown through that. Financially, sure, I earn more money than I ever thought that I would. I remember people before I started the business saying to me, you should start your own business. And I was saying, I don't know anything about business. I'm a physical therapist. They don't teach us anything about business. And things just kept lighting up. And, I remember probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years in, and we're 20 some now, a client and friend said to me, I've been following you and following your path. And my goodness, what a businesswoman you have become.
Mhm.
And, it kind of struck me, but it is a reality. And I've also shared that when I first started in Butler, there were some docs in the area call me the voodoo chick because I was talking about yoga and supplements and different things. And again, graciously from my spirit, I'm no longer called the voodoo chick. I am very well known as Dr. Lorri. And, with that, there is a weight that is carried to continue to move forward, to continue to give back from what has been created. And, so the PT business is thriving. Dr. Lorri Health is thriving. Within Dr. Lorri Health, it's this podcasts and writing a book and writing blogs that I've been writing blogs for years and just simply sending them out. Here you go. You want to read this? I have some wisdom. I'm not asking for money in that. I just want you to read. I want you to read, and maybe some of those words will open up your mind to a different way of thinking and believing and hoping, and and sharing and making your bridge from lack to abundance in whatever way that is needed for whomever you are.
I like what you said about demands. Okay, because people think that is disrespectful
Yeah.
to God. Okay. And yet, times where I have really made demands and commitments, I have seen quantum leaps. I have seen miracles come in, and believing that I am walking on miracle ground, believing that I am part of this infinite abundance that all can manifest out of nothing, and that we don't have to know how, but when we get to the point where we feel like we just hit another wall, that has purpose to it. That's another part of just letting go. I would like to read a couple notes that I wrote down from Florence Shinn. Okay. And she lived in the 1800s. She's someone that I have studied for so long, and who has helped people to manifest anything out of their life in a very short time based upon your belief. And sometimes anyone watching this, you might need a Dr. Lorri in your life. You might need a Judy Marie in your life to say, hey, I believe in you. I'll hold that space until you do. I'll help you bridge that gap. And I'm going to just read a couple things here that, I'd like to share. Don't look desperately for it rather than in praise and gratitude. Whatever it is you're going for, think of it in praise and have the gratitude. Don't come from desperation, because when we get to that level of clarity is when we start building more confidence, when we start to have more assurance within ourselves. Open the gates of expectancy. Expect something's going to change. Expect something's going to be better. Anticipate that. Universal supply. Ask for what is yours by divine right under grace, and it will come in a perfect way. That's a promise in the universe. I want to talk about the supernatural consciousness that we all have too, in part of manifestation. In consciousness, the lavish supply, for every demand that we have is so good and perfect. And I'm really glad you brought this up several times too, because it has no limits. It's huge. It's boundless. The super conscious is the realm of inspiration, revelation, illumination, and intuition. Call upon your super consciousness then. We can tap into that. That to me is God consciousness. That is also whatever the master teachers you believe in, could be Jesus consciousness. And here, super consciousness is the realm of perfect ideas. Trust the invisible supply, because every demand, anything you can imagine, there is a supply for it. It's huge. Okay. And how we're living during these times where we'll hear from the news, we'll hear from different sources, we're running out, we're not going to have any, we're totally running out. And it just goes on. And it's easy to get caught in that. And I'm all for, being prepared for those rainy days, whatever it is. I'm all for being wise and be prepared, but not to the point that fear immobilizes people and they stop creating, they stop imagining they still can have a prosperous life, that they still could be healthy, wealthy, well, and that's, you're such a good example of this, Dr. Lorri. It's, just saying, okay, this is what we're going to do now. Okay, I'm going to write my book now, and we're going to learn how to set this up, with the podcast, and we're going to do this and that. Anything we can believe, anything we can imagine, then we can achieve that. We can attract that.
I agree with it all. I'm living it. If I could take you back to those early years and, the clothing that came, my great aunt was a Catholic nun, and, we would go there to the rummage sale, and, that's where clothing came from. I remember being in elementary school, and we had to there were skirts, but you could wear brown pants. And I had a pair of brown pants that happened to have some design on the back pockets, and they kept saying, "You can't wear those." And I said, "These are the only ones I have. And I get the rule, but I don't have another pair, and just my goodness gracious, and again, if I could take you through the row houses, the feeling, the lack of security, just so many different things. And, so that will come out in the book. So I guess that's how I'm going to show it. I'll write about all of that in more depth. And also with that in writing, yes, I'm sharing that. And I will also then give steps to create the bridge. I've thought about an autobiography for many years. And now that, the divine inspiration of an autobiography with self-help feels much, much more cohesive and much more of what the world needs. And, I have that knowledge and that wisdom now because I'm supposed to, and I know that from the depths of me, and I've known that for a really long time. And, so I know that I'm a great leader, and I've proven it prior to owning my business and then in the business and in many other things that I've done. So I know my gifts. I understand my gifts. What's most important is that I'm grateful for them. And I'm grateful for everything that life produced for me and continues to. I keep saying back then I had all these issues. That's when I learned all this. My goodness, I'm still human.
Mhm.
And, and things still show up where I have to check back in and say, what am I doing as a human being? How do I call my spirit in?
Mhm.
And there are still demands that I make for sure. When I really need something, when COVID hit, it hit us all so hard. And, just imagine owning a business that you don't know if it's going to be there the next day, if you have to shut it down or not. And that's your livelihood. Thankfully, we moved through all of that. And the cool thing now is, yes, I make demands, but what I do more than anything, Judy, is recognize the gifts. I recognize what is constantly being bestowed and set in front of me, constantly saying, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And what you're saying also about recognizing the gifts for people who are watching this video right now might feel like they really don't have too many gifts.
Sure.
And they might be questioning what can they really contribute to the world. There are two people I listened to recently, two YouTubes that, let me tell you, wherever you're at, you all have gifts. Okay, you all have talent. It might be making chocolate chip cookies. Okay, it might, whatever. Then make them and share them. Or whatever you want to do with them. We all have that. But this one lady, I'm going to share these two experiences that I just heard. I was just so over the moon about it. A lady, 75 years old, talking about how to use castor oil on your skin,
Mm.
all the benefits of castor oil. She talks about all kinds of things, actually. She has 22,000 followers. Okay. I mean, she is authentic. Here's the deal. She's so authentic. She's just being her natural self, sharing her experiences, what she's finding to do. She found her niche right there.
Mm.
Then I heard this other lady. This is so crazy. She's older than that. She created her own little hotline to help young women who need help. And she volunteers some of her time every day to do that. Okay. It's you start thinking out of the box. You open up your hand for all possibilities. You open up your heart for all possibilities. And I think of this saying, out of the imaginations of the heart come the issues of life. Sharing from our heart with others opens up the issues, the opportunity of life. We're not containing it, we're sharing it. We're not containing the abundance, we're sharing it.
Sure.
Whatever that is. And then this is one of the last sayings I want to read from Florence Shinn. I honor her and for all of her positive influence to just millions of people. She says, and I believe in this affirmation, the ground I am on is holy ground. I now expand rapidly into the divine plan of my life, where all conditions are permanently perfect.
Mm.
Permanently. You're talking about what you're creating, what you're doing, that permanent abundance, that those issues of life that keep opening up are so magnetic. No
Mm.
matter what goes on outside of us, no matter what goes on in Cucamonga or wherever it all is, we have that vastness, connection of infinite intelligence, guidance, help. We have so many resources available to us.
And in that, the biggest, the most abundant, the greatest source is love.
Oh gosh,
Love.
that's a
And
great way.
everything comes from love. And so, there are many people I listen to as well and read. And when I tap in, you know, every gift comes out of love. When I had that desire to become a physical therapist, of course, that inching or that thing, that initial juice was this can bring me a career where I can have that dollar.
Mhm.
But more than that was how many people can I help? So
Yes.
everything is led by love. So if you feel that you don't have a gift to share, you just tap into that big heart and that
Oh.
soul and say, in love, what can I do today? If you don't have money to share, that's okay. Volunteer.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a gift you've been sitting on thinking, I can't do this. That links back to imposter syndrome, right? So I had a conversation with one of our employees a couple weeks ago about this, and it's come back up a few times. Literally, through the American Physical Therapy Association, I was reading a newsletter the other day, and there is the main article is about imposter syndrome. And I'm chuckling, thinking, okay, this is a big message that needs to be shared both within my body and in my spirit into other people. And, I can easily, being that little girl from a row house, which I now say humbly and with great joy. But truly, being a little girl born and raised in a row house, how did I get here? Am I being an imposter by being Dr. Lorri and everything else, by doing this podcast, by deciding I'm going to write a book, by writing blogs, just endlessly and blindly throwing them out there for whomever to read? There's still minute for me now, minute amounts of imposter syndrome. Where does this come from? Are you really good enough to do this? And I now, even when it pops up, I just tap into my spirit side, which says, hey, kid, you were born to do this. So, no, you're not an imposter. You're living your life
Oh
and giving
gosh,
and giving in your life.
Dr.
And
Lori, I love that.
yeah, it's, so what is in your heart? And
Mhm.
take whatever that is and walk across the street and give your neighbor some soup that you made. I mean, there's just multiple things. I went swimming this morning at the Butler YMCA, and the one part of it was flooded. So one of the pools was closed, one was open. Went into the locker room that I always go into, and the garbage can was up on the sink. You could tell that there was some water there too. They had cleaned it up, and so I have a choice. Do I leave that garbage can up on the sink and complain that they left the garbage can on the sink? Or do I take that down and wipe the counter
Mhm.
and just say thank you? And I mean, that may seem silly and minute, but think about that. Have you walked into a bathroom anywhere and you saw something on the floor or whatever it is? Do you decide to pick that up and make it cleaner? Or do you leave it there thinking, I didn't do that. I'm not cleaning that up.
Mhm.
It's that again is an act of love for the next person that walks in there. And, they don't even have to know.
Right.
That's the other thing. They don't have to know.
And that
Um,
also is a vibration of abundance.
yes, for
Okay.
sure.
It's on that frequency of goodness, and more goodness begets more goodness, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back. And, on every podcast, I've pulled different cards, and
Oh,
I'm not,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not in my office. So this isn't from Wayne Dyer. It's another deck, but I do have two of them One, I have to
Okay.
admit, this one I actually looked for because it says abundance on it.
Mhm.
And it says, I take a deep breath and reflect on the awesomeness of life. The universe supports my success. We've
Mm.
talked about that over and over and over again. When you put into motion something that you want to do, and the juice, I'll go back to
Yeah.
that again. I
Yeah.
didn't plan on using that. That just came in today.
Mm.
The juice that begins to move that
Mhm.
is you saying, I want to do this. Spirit, guide me because I want to do it for the betterment of the world. I want to do it out of love. And the universe will support you over and over and over and over again. It has for me throughout my entire life. The other is allowing, and this is the one I actually pulled. It is with self love that I am able to embrace the pain, fear, and stress of life. Within me exists an infinite potential to transcend even the most monumental of obstacles. I am present and I am powerful.
I love that.
Present and I am powerful. And, again, imposter or not, which I don't think I am, um, the most monumental of obstacles would be being a little girl in a row house that came from a place of lack of funds, that lived through the first 15 years of life going through devastating, devastating loss. And somehow, and I do know it's by spirit, so by spirit, deciding to dig out of all of that,
Mhm.
to tearfully, because I have so much gratitude. These tears are of gratitude and joy and, I mean, thankfulness from the depths of my soul that I can be sitting here today
Mhm.
with Judy, with you, Judy, as another female business owner and sharing our friendship and the love that we share and being able to send that out
Mhm.
along with all the wisdom that we just talked about for the last however long we've been on this call. I'm not even sure. So just please know, start from love, ask for guidance. And when you see that little light, whatever it is, follow it. And you too may be on a podcast someday.
Yeah, right, right. I love that. I think that is a great way to end this call. And thank you, Dr. Lorri, so much. And everybody watching, again, please hit the like button, subscribe. Oh my goodness, you want to hear more of what's coming up next. So we
Amen.
will see you then. And until, continue to expect many miracles in your life today.
Absolutely. Feel that vibration. There's a vibration right now. Just feel that and move forward in it. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate it.